Hello everyone, and welcome to this overview of what's new in Vantage Update 5. We added lots of new features, and in this video I'm going to highlight a few of those. First, I'm going to demonstrate how you can use LiveLink to render animations directly from 3ds Max. Then I'm going to use the Place tool to align objects over different surfaces, after which I'm going to use the new Shot mode in the animation editor. And finally, I'm going to have a look at the material preview thumbnails and all their customization options. As I mentioned, we have even more improvements, so I encourage you to download the latest build and try them out. To demonstrate the features, I'm using an interviewer from Evermotion, and I've also added a few animated trees again from Evermotion. As you can see, there is point cache animation, and I've overridden the playback to a couple of models to create diversity in the motion. One of the new functionalities is rendering animation directly with the LiveLink, and it can be found in the toolbar. As you can see, we have the old functionality as well, and the new one is right here. It also requires Vantage to be running first, so let's go ahead and start LiveLink. Alright, now the scene is being loaded. Okay, there we go. The first thing I'm going to do is lower the exposure a bit, and I'm also going to turn on opacity tracing. Let's bring the highlight burn a bit as well. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to lower the resolution and maximize the viewport so that we can see better. By the way, if the view frame buffer is in the way, you can just minimize it, but I recommend not closing it since it will interrupt live linking. Now that we have animation in the trees, I want to add some to the pool as well. And in this case, we have a static bitmap. Let's bring the material editor, which generates bump, but it's a static image. So if I scrub the timeline, there is no animation. So one thing that I can do is use a procedural noise with animated face. You can see the animated face here, and plug this map in a displace modifier on top of the pool geometry. And in order for this to work, the object will require a bit more polygons, so I'm going to use Turbo Smooth to subdivide it. Using this approach, the animated deformed geometry will be passed via LiveLink in Vantage, and we can see the result when scrubbing the timeline. The water is now moving, and I'm going to play the animation to see that in real time. We can look around and observe the behavior. So let's have a look at how we can render this animation. I'm going to press this button here and it will open up some settings. These are file output settings and render settings. And the important part is that we recommend using physical cameras instead of perspective ones, because there are some limitations of the regular and perspective cameras in 3ds Max. So I'm going to select the physical camera now. I can set some resolution presets and so on, but I can also get the settings from 3ds Max. If I change some of the output settings from here, like for example the animation range, or maybe a resolution, like so, I can change even the camera, and pressing the Get Settings from 3ds Max will populate the output window with everything here. So I'm going to refresh and get the settings again, select the physical camera, and just bring back the exposure again, now that the physical camera applies its own exposure, and bring up the highlight burn. Now I'm ready for rendering, so I'm going to just press the Start button and wait for the sequence to finish. I'm going to cancel that, and you can do that from the pop-up in 3ds Max or the pop-up in Vantage, both would work, and we can see the result at the end of the video. A quick note is that the second flyout button here allows you to use the Vantage native render sequence settings. And the advantage of this is getting detailed information about the memory footprint of enabling or disabling certain features, like the light cache here and the denoiser and so on. But I'm going to cancel the animation and send the whole scene back in Vantage so I can talk about more of the features that we've added. Okay, now the scene is being loaded in Vantage, and we can maximize that, expand some of the controls. Okay, camera, lights. All right. Increase the exposure a little bit. I'm going to increase the resolution. All right. Now, one of the small improvements we did was to add the placement tool that you get when you import a Viri scene or a Cosmos asset in Vantage, and integrate that in the Move tool. So now we can move this along some of the axes or the planes. And if I select the yellow cube in the center of the gizmo, that will place and align the object along the surface of another object under the cursor. You can see I'm placing that along the table or the vase or anything else. And that makes it easier to place some objects around the scene. And let's have a look at another example. In this case, there is hierarchy of these two objects. So I need to select the parent of both of the objects to move the whole object. So the pivot point of this object is somewhere far along. So I'm going to edit the pivot point using the tool for that and position that in the bottom like so. And now I can just select the parent and use the snap tool to move all the objects together like so. And obviously I'm not going to place this chair here. So let's bring it back and move on to the next addition. We added some functionality to the animation editor. The first one is the ability to create a camera between transitions. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to add a couple of new cameras. So the original here, or the V-Ray camera, that's an animated one. And I'm also going to add another one here. And automatically there is a transition between the two. Let's increase the duration to something more. Let's go 5. And you can see there is a plus here in the timeline. If I press it, that will create a new camera at this position. That makes it easier to insert keyframes during transition or refine some of the animation paths that you create by going and repositioning or modifying the new camera and updating it. In the animation editor, we also added a new mode called the shot mode, and that represents the animation in a different way, where you can see a queue of your cameras with transitions between them. And the blocks of the transitions are with fixed length. As you can see, we have 2 seconds or 3 seconds, but they look the same. I'm going to delete all of these cameras and create a whole new animation to show you how you can work with this mode. So let's position the camera first in the original position. Let's delete that. And I'm going to create a small dolly. Okay, something like that. Create a new camera. And I'm going to go outside and let's create a camera here. Maybe also one over there. Like so. Make a small panning movement. Create a camera. All right. So let's create an animation out of this. I can drag and drop the cameras. And you can see automatically there is a transition because of this checkbox. I'm going to also add new cameras over there, but right, okay, I don't need this one, so delete that. I want a camera cut there. Great. I'm going to adjust the first transition as well, but as you can see, this mode allows you to just clearly see an outline of your camera sequence with their transitions and don't have to think about duration in advance. We've also replaced the denoiser slider with a toggle button because the NVIDIA AI denoiser delivers great results without having to mix it with the original image. We've also revamped the material lister. You can see we have now thumbnails or swatches, and these are completely configurable. They lay out all the materials of the VR scene. You can switch between 1 column all the way to 4 columns. And the thumbnails are generated when you scroll. I'm going to keep it to 2 or maybe 1. Let's see an interesting material so that I can show how you can customize the preview. You can change the preview mesh to different types of objects. You can also change the illumination. For example, there is an internal light so that you can see two-sided materials easier. And also reinfill and front light. Let's modify some of their parameters. Okay, let's reset those back. One of my favorite features is also the option to have a zoomed version of the preview so you can see the details better, like so. You can also change the environment. I'm going to select an HDRI. Let's make it visible by turning off the lights and maybe increasing the intensity. If I switch the HDRI, whoa, that's too much. Let's bring it back. Last, you can change the sample count used for the swatches, and thanks to the NVIDIA's AI denoiser, 30 samples are more than enough to give us great representation of what the material looks like. And hopefully this will make it a bit easier to locate materials and apply them easier in your scenes. And that concludes this video. I hope you like the new features. Thanks for watching and take care.